Okay, so in this video I'm going to look at trigonometry, and I'm just going to look at the very basics of trigonometry. And I'm going to look initially at this particular triangle here, and this triangle here is a right angle triangle because it has a 90-degree angle in it. So this symbol here just means it's 90 degrees. This angle is 90 degrees. And we're going to talk about this particular angle here, which is angle A. We'll call it angle A. Now, just to identify the different sides for this triangle here, you've got your angle A here. The side that's opposite the angle that you're talking about is called simply the opposite. The angle next to the angle that you're talking about is called the adjacent. This angle here is adjacent to it, or adjacent is just another word for next to, if you like. And then the longest side, which is always opposite the 90 degrees, the longest side is called the hypotenuse. So we have our opposite, which is opposite the angle we're talking about. We have the adjacent, which is next to the angle we're talking about. And then the longest side is called the hypotenuse. Now we're going to identify three ratios related to this triangle here. We're going to talk about the sine of the angle A. We're going to talk about the sine, S-I-N-E, but it's usually reduced to S-I-N. Sine of the angle A is just going to be defined as the opposite divided by the hypotenuse. So in other words, whatever length this is, if you divide it by this length here, you'll get the sine of A. You'll get what's called the sine of A, the sine of the angle A. Now, the next one is called the cosine, and we usually reduce it to cos, C-O-S. And that's simply the adjacent divided by the hypotenuse. So if you take this side here, whatever length it is, divided by this length here, that's just simply defined as the cosine of A, or the cos of A. And the last one we look at is called the tangent, the tan of A, and that's just, it's called a tangent of A or the tan of A. It's usually reduced to T-A-N, tan of A, and that's simply the opposite divided by the adjacent. So whatever length this is, divided by this length here, and that gives you the tan of A, what's called the tangent of A. Now, we spoke here about this angle here, and we called it A. But what about this angle here, if we wanted to look at the sine, cos, and tan of this angle here? Well, you could draw the same triangle again, and this is a right angle here, and we'll call this angle here up here called B. We'll call this angle up here B. Now, let's just define our sides first of all. So the side opposite B is this one here, so we call this the opposite. The longest side is still called the hypotenuse, and remember that's opposite the 90 degrees, 90-degree angle, so this is the hypotenuse here. And this other side here is called the adjacent, because it's next to B. It's the smaller side next to B. So we can find the sine, cos, and tan of the angle B simply by doing exactly the same as what we did up here. The sine of the angle B is opposite over hypotenuse, so this time it's this side over this side here. The cosine, or the cos of B, will be the adjacent over the hypotenuse, so this side divided by this side. And the tangent, or the tan of A, is the opposite over the adjacent, this side divided by this side here. So that's your sine, cos, and tan of your angle, whatever angle you're talking about. So now if we have a particular angle, say for example we take a triangle here, and let's say this angle here is 30 degrees. You know, the sine of this side, this is the opposite, this is the adjacent, this is our hypotenuse. The sine of this angle here, the sine of our 30 degrees is opposite over hypotenuse, as up here. but you can actually work out what the sine of 30 is, the sine of 30 degrees is, by just using your calculator. You'll notice on your calculator you'll have these three buttons: the sine of some angle, the cos of some angle, and the tan of some angle. So you can just simply type in, press the button sine, press the button, let's say press the button sine first of all, then press 30. Make sure your calculator is in degrees, by the way. So press sine, press 30, press equals, and you should get 0.5. So the sine of 30 degrees, when you do it on your calculator, is 0.5, or a half. And you can do that for any angle. Whatever angle this is here, you can just simply use your calculator if you don't have the sides of these triangles. So just type in sine of 30, you can type in cos of 30, you can type in tan of 30, and so on. And it'll give you the ratio. So let's have a look at some examples where we would use this, or how we would use this to find sides and angles. So let's take, we'll just draw a triangle here first of all. So let's draw this triangle here. This is a right angle triangle, this is our hypotenuse. We'll put the angle down here, so we'll say this is the opposite, this is the adjacent. So let's take this as, we'll say 31 degrees this time. We'll say our hypotenuse is 8, let's say centimeters. It can be any units. And we want to find out what this side here is. So we don't know the length of this side, but we have the angle and we have another side. Now when you look at sine, cos, and tan, this here we can work out on our calculator if we have the angle. The opposite is a length and the adjacent is a length. So there are three things here in this equation. So in other words, if we have two of them, we can always find a third one. So let's write down an equation with these in it and see can we work out the unknown. So we want to know the opposite. We have the hypotenuse and we have the angle. So what's opposite over hypotenuse? It's just simply sine. So it's the sine of our angle, in this case 31 degrees. So the sine of 31 degrees is opposite over hypotenuse. Now we know that the hypotenuse is 8 centimeters, so we can put that in as well. Oops. So we can just put sine 31 degrees is equal to our opposite, we don't know. We know that the hypotenuse is 8. So look here, we've got 1, 2, 3 things in our equation. We can work this out on our calculator. We know 8 is 8. We don't know x, so we can isolate x. So what have we got here? We've got x divided by 8 is equal to the sine of 31. So if you just type in, press the button sine, press 31, press equals, you'll get 0.5150. 0.5150. That's the 4 decimal places. We'll just do 4 decimal places for the moment. So let's have a look then. We put that over 1. It's a fraction. We have a fraction equal to a fraction. So you can just simply cross multiply here. So multiply the x by the 1. You get x. 8 times 8 multiplied by 0.5150. So that gives us x as, I'm going to multiply, I'll just do this on my calculator. So you've got 8 multiplied by 0.5150, and that gives you 4.12. So that's 4.12. So now we know that our x value here is 4.12. So that's a very basic example how you would use it to find one of the sides. Then if you wanted to, if you were asked to find this side, y, for example, you could just simply use Pythagoras' theorem. You've got two of the sides, use Pythagoras' theorem to work out the third side. We won't do that for the moment. Let's have a look at another one of these examples. So let's take another right angle triangle. So we'll just draw a simple right angle triangle like this, and we'll put in an angle here, let's say 34 degrees this time. And we'll put in, let's say the opposite, we'll call that, no, we'll use, what did we use the last time? We used the opposite. So let's put in a value here of say 4. and let's say we have to work out, let's say this side here this time. So we'll call x this side here. We have to work out what this side here is. So again, you're going to use sine, cos, or tan. So you got to look at what you have here and what you need to find out. We need to find out the opposite. We need to find out what the opposite is. We have the adjacent, and we have the angle. So opposite over adjacent we know is tan of our angle, 34 degrees. So the tan of 34 is opposite over adjacent. We need to find out what the opposite is. We have the adjacent, so that's perfect. We have the tan 34 degrees is equal to our opposite is x, we don't know what that is, and our adjacent is 4. So we have two of the three things, so we can work out what the third thing is, or what the unknown is. So let's put that over 1. Again, we have a fraction equal to a fraction here, so we can just simply cross multiply. X times 1 is x. 4 times tan 34, 4 multiplied by the tan of 34, which we can do easily enough on our calculators. So we end up with x is equal to 4 multiplied by the tan of 34 degrees, and that gives us 2.698. We'll just go to 3 decimal places there. 2.698. That's the 3 decimal places. Okay, so we worked out what x is here. And again, if you want to work out what the longer side is here, what the hypotenuse is, you can just simply do Pythagoras' theorem. Okay, so I tell you what, we're going to just leave it at that at this stage. I'll do another video which will involve working out maybe an angle. Maybe we're given two sides and we have to work out an angle. So we'll look at that in the next video. We'll just leave it at that at this stage.